Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Friday, May 22nd, 2026, and today we're burying some cow manure. We're done with subscriptions, but it is Feedback Friday, which is something I can always subscribe to, so let's do it. All right, welcome to Friday, everyone. I hope this week has been good for you. We're cruising here, I suppose, especially after some decent rain this weekend. I think it's actually raining right now. I didn't have the most productive day yesterday for the rain and for some general fatigue, but that's just how it goes sometimes, and by sometimes I just guess I mean the growing season. I got a little harvesting done, some planting and some cleanup, and I did add that JMS liquid to the potatoes that I mentioned yesterday. I also forgot to mention that for a few days I will knock off the larva of the potato beetles with the back of my rake by literally just running it through the potatoes. They just kind of naturally fall down, and you do that enough, it kind of slows them down a little bit. It may not work like it did last year, but you know, last year gave me some promise. The kids are officially out of school now, so I might see if I can rope them into a little seeding for me today, because that is definitely something you cannot get behind on at this time of year or next month or any month through August, really. Even when you're most tired, you just got to keep planting. Anyway, as always, let us know what you all are up to, no matter how big or how small. We love to see it, and you can do so by uploading a 20-second farm video clip to Dropbox or Drive and sharing that with Farmer Mike at no-tillgrowers.com. Those rule. Anyway, it is Friday, which means Feedback Friday, where we explore what you all were saying about this week's topics. On Monday, we talked about okra and the circle of life of a garden. Lots of excitement on the okra stuff, which was cool to see. Maybe no one really ever talks about okra in this world. I certainly don't very much, but even though I love that crop. At JDT8 wrote, quote, "Wow, one of my favorite episodes ever. This will be my first time growing okra, northern Utah. Thanks for all the tips. Also, a semi-vegetarian, I thoroughly understand both sides of the circle of life debate. Your views are very mature and wise. Much respect," end quote. Thank you. And if you, the listener, are like, Utah? Let me tell you what at Caddy Pole wrote, quote, "Here in Germany, I grow okra in containers in a greenhouse. Clemson's spineless, grown in heated trays under grow lights and planted out in June. They get 2 meters tall. That's like 6.5 feet tall. Spacing at 45 centimeters, that's about 17 inches apart," end quote. So there you have it. Someone growing in a cold region, albeit undercover. Love the recipes also that came in that day. At Digital Crickets wrote, quote, "Burgundy okra for the win. We split them down the middle, toss them in some avocado oil and sea salt, then place split side down on a baking sheet. Cover with foil, bake for 20 minutes at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, remove foil, continue baking another 20 minutes. Okra will be tender and some crispy edges, no slime, didn't get them wet with water. They are delicious," end quote. Indeed, you don't have to fry okra. It is, dare I say, equally good baked or grilled. Lots of picklers out there too. That's fun to see. Love it. Good stuff on that thread all day long with the okra, and with several of people's favorite varieties listed there too. On Tuesday, we talked lessons from the Amazon rainforest, aphids in the greenhouse, and wheel hose. Good comments on all the topics that day. Really appreciated this from at Birdie, but with the I being a 1. Anyway, quote, "I think the point you make about never seeing the Amazon can connect really well to your point about using conservation of the rainforest as a blueprint for conservation in other areas. As a fellow Kentuckian, I know neither of us are strangers to environmental harms that stem from people not having opportunity to support themselves/their families in other ways. I think this help the people to help the ecosystem mindset is something that gets overlooked a lot in traditional conservation work, which tends to view anyone harming the environment as the enemy. Lovely topic, great insight, much to consider," end quote. And yes, thank you, absolutely. The only thing I would maybe quibble with lightly is that it's not always so much overlooked in the conservation work as it is overlooked by the policy wonks and the policy people. The ecologists are screaming that time and time again, when we repair an ecosystem, we repair an economy. People return to the land and area and find wages because of the abundance. This is why debates about conservation and climate and such are so obnoxious. Fixing the environment is good for literally everybody, except maybe the oil execs filling the pockets of the politicians. At Gibby Rocker Hunter asked, quote, "In 50 to 80 years, the Amazon will most certainly be a desert. I'm guessing you are speaking anecdotally. Do you actually believe that, or are you also exaggerating to get your point across?" End quote. No, and my gosh, do I wish that was hyperbole. I am citing peer-reviewed research that suggests conservatively we could see the tipping point occur by like 2050 if we're not seeing it already. For instance, they are seeing snow loss in the Andes from deforestation in the Amazon, which is real bad because the Andes, also the snow melt, feeds the Amazon. It's an ancient water cycle that is starting to fully break down because of deforestation. And once you break down one part, the whole system tends to spiral, especially in what ecologists refer to as a wet desert. How fast the whole rainforest will fully collapse after that tipping point is a little bit harder to estimate because there are so many different variables like droughts or economic pressures that could exacerbate it, or conservation efforts that could slow it down, the heat, all the things. I'll link a video though from the Yale School of the Environment that shows you what the soil and climate actually looks like there without a rainforest, like where the rainforest has been cleared. It is profoundly heartbreaking. And it's also a glimpse into the future if we don't step up. Their future, our future, everyone's. On aphids, at Mark Grattan wrote, quote, "My approach to aphids in the greenhouse is exactly the same as aphids outdoors. I spray them off with my hand pump pressure spray bottle filled just with plain water. A week later, they come back, but only about a third of the original population. Spray again, they come back, even less. By then, the beneficial insects clean up the rest," end quote. And yeah, that's been largely my experience too with aphids and several other pests. If you catch them early enough, knock them off the plant, and then, get the plant the nutrition it's lacking, bingo, that helps a ton. On Wednesday, we talked farmers markets do's and don'ts. Do farmers markets make sense? And the state of farmers markets, a little compilation episode there. Liked this from at Stephen or Stephen Curran, who wrote, quote, "In Chicago, there are Green City farmers markets. People can purchase up to $25 of SNAP benefits and get $75 worth of produce. That's paid for through donations and partially state and local funding. I would love to see a grassroots campaign to make that happen everywhere," end quote. Yeah, I love that stuff. Leveling the playing field so that everyone has more access to fresh local produce. Farmers have a bigger pool of customers, and ultimately more money floods back into those local economies, benefiting everyone. Definitely where I'd prefer to see my tax dollars going, instead of, say, like the billionaires' pockets that it usually ends up in. At Simply Nicole wrote, quote, "So true about coming to the market fresh. Fresh produce and freshly rested is a must. As a market manager and seller, one thing I always remind my vendors and self is to know your products and be confident in what you are selling. Also, be kind and give grace to everyone," end quote. Indeed. And I think being kind and giving grace to everyone is just generally a good approach to living a happy life. So here to that. Oh, and at Glenn Lohman wrote, quote, "I'm in the mood for another book from you. Even a small book would be great," end quote. Thank you, but I, don't have a book in the works and probably will never again find the time to do one so long as I'm doing this show. But hopefully this show fills that void a little bit for people. In some ways, this show is to me like my next book or books, I guess. And the nice thing about that is that I don't have to charge anyone for it. Though, of course, the book is also available in libraries, which I love, and it is a good fundraiser for us. I'm not saying I will never do another one, but for the moment, I don't know where I would find the time or capacity enough, unfortunately, to do one. Thank you, though. It's nice to hear. Then on Thursday, we talked about watering plants in the heat. We decided when to pull a crop once it's damaged, and took on an interesting lasagna bed and iodine conundrum on the cauliflower dilemma, where we were asked about whether to pull a frosted bed of cauliflower. Some good responses there. At Tommy Butler wrote, quote, "If you've got the market for it, I love using radishes to fill in gaps when Mother Nature happens. They're super fast, delicious, solid margins, and give you time to prep your next seedlings when they're done in 30-ish days," end quote. And Brad Liston wrote something similar, quote, "That frosty cauliflower would be a tricky one. If I didn't have anything ready to go into the ground, then I would probably leave them and get new seed trays started ASAP, or that interplanting option, either for your follow-up crop in the seasonal rotation, or just some short growth audible to slot something in that will cover that time and help make that quote-unquote bed rent. By the time your trays or interplanting seeds start to pop, you should know in what way that cauliflower is headed, either positive or otherwise," end quote. And yeah, they probably didn't plan to have that bed for several more weeks. So whatever was going to follow the cauliflower could probably be started while the intermediate crop goes in and then ultimately comes out and maybe makes a little extra cash. And if the cauliflower recovers, bonus. About the iodine and the walnut holes thing, at Plant Obsessed wrote, quote, "I got distracted part of the way through the episode. Could not understand holes or hulls. What is going on? Re-listen to the episode, LOL. As always, good stuff," end quote. And truthfully, when I was listening back, I couldn't tell the difference either, which word I was saying. I had no idea that those words sounded so similar until I heard myself say holes over and over again. I promise you that in my head, I'm nailing that nuance of ol sound. But, you learn something new every day, even about yourself. Anyway, good stuff as always, friends. You're the best. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take on some composted but not fully composted cow manure on the beds, garden beds, just so that's clear. BRB.
Well, we're here in Zone 7B with a tiller, a rake, and a stirrup hoe. We got the beds made, got the terraces formed. With all this dry heat, though, we're kind of I'm a little afraid to put transplants in it, so I've put down a broadcast alfalfa, and now we're watering it slightly, waiting for rain.
Today's episode is brought to you by BCS America. If you're practicing no-till or low-till farming, you know that heavy equipment is often the enemy of your soil structure. That's where BCS two-wheeled tractors come in. Built for small farms, market gardens, and regenerative growers, BCS tractors give you the power to manage beds efficiently without unnecessary compaction. For the low and no-till grower, there are two attachments that change the game. The BCS Power Harrow stirs only the top inch or two of soil to incorporate soil amendments and create a perfect seedbed without soil inversion or pulling up weed seeds. And when it's time to terminate cover crops, that flail mower shreds organic matter into a beautiful, nutrient-rich mulch right on top of the bed. To find your local dealer and see the full lineup of attachments designed for the way you farm, head to bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com. All right, back to the show. A quick and loving reminder that if you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. Does this work bring you $2 worth of value a month? $5? You can even pay $20-something to just cover the whole year. But as a bonus, I will try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in. But as a bonus to signing up, I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Loke Nielsen, who writes, quote, "Hello, this is alarmish," meaning please answer it quickly if you can. I just had a wonderful neighbor drop off a truckload of cow manure, and it has been sitting since the fall, somewhat composted, but not fully. It's unsurprisingly not quite the crumbly compost like the manure I've had sitting for a full year, but rather mildly smelly and still looks like, well, manure. If I use this on my new, not yet made beds, then put 2 inches of soil above, can I grow anything in it, or am I better off with just plants that have 90 plus days to maturity until I harvest? Thanks, end quote. Okay, so good questions here. I know we took on a similar question recently about horse manure, but maybe I can add something new to this convo, especially with the soil on top thing. First, and this goes for cow, horse, elephant, whatever manure that you might encounter, if it smells like ammonia, like it stinks or it burns your nostrils, it's not quite ready yet. You would want to either continue the composting process, possibly with a little bit of straw mixed in or something, just some carbon, or you would want to allow ample time for it to fully chill out on the beds. The former is preferred to the latter for leaching and carbon loss. But if you say, like put down a little straw and then cover that up with that manure, you would have a little more of a balancing effect to that nitrogen issue. Again, though, you'd have to wait to plant for sure. Plant roots are not going to love that nitrogenous gas any more than your nostrils will. Now, if it does not smell and it's decomposed and ready to go, then yes, you do still have to wait that 90-120 day rule if you intend to sell it. If you don't intend to sell it, then it's just up to you, your risk tolerance there, though I would probably still wait, for roughly that same amount of time, even if it's just a bit overkill, because, well, E. coli does not sound like it's very much fun to get. The 90-120 day rule, and apologies, but I know there are new listeners here who have not heard me say this 1,000 times. The 90-120 day rule just says that anywhere raw manure is used, which is, if it has not been properly composted, even 10-year-old manure is considered raw manure. Anywhere raw manure is used, food cannot be harvested for sale for a certain period of time. For food that touch the ground like turnips, beets, lettuces, etc., that period is 120 days from the application, or if you, for instance, rotate chickens, it's 120 days since the day that they were moved off that area. For produce that doesn't touch the ground, it's 90 days that you have to wait. So you can harvest tomatoes 90 days later, but not radishes. That makes sense. It's a disease prevention thing, and it's required in organic farming, but also by the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA. One part of the question that I should pause on is putting soil over the composted manure. For me, I want the compost to on top, preferably to act as a mulch. But if you have another mulch that would go, over the soil that you put on top, then that would be fine. You can bury composted manure, sure. The plants will be happy about that ultimately, but you will end up doing a fair amount of weeding anywhere there is exposed soil, so that you have to take that into account. This also, of course, assumes that you're not talking about, importing soil or doing something more like double digging. But importing soil comes with a whole other set of issues, because you could be bringing in invasives or chemical waste, lead, who knows. If you ever import topsoil, get a good idea of where it came from and test it if you can, just to make sure that you're not contaminating your soil. So yeah, keep all that in mind. Anyway, did I miss anything there? Let me know, or otherwise we're going to take a quick break. Then if you want to catch our third segment, you will have to upgrade to Growers Daily Premium and Be Right Back Plus. You'll love it. Be right back. Plus. Today's episode is brought to you by Grown By. Grow smarter with Grown By, the farmer-owned cooperative. Grown By is the platform for online sales of everything, custom and traditional CSAs, halves of beef, flower bouquets, wholesale to restaurants, and now Grown By supports in-person sales too. Their new app, Grown By Register, you can supercharge your market and farm stand, finally bringing together your online and offline sales and customer data. Grown By is proud to make local food accessible by processing SNAP benefits online and in person right within the app. Grown By helps you put your best food forward. Schedule a demo at coop.grownby.com/no-till. That's coop.grownby.com/no-till. Today's episode is also brought to you by Good Agriculture. If the season is picking up and the pile of receipts is starting to grow, you're not alone. Good Agriculture handles farm bookkeeping so you can stay ahead of the mess before it piles up. They keep your books organized each month, help you understand what's coming in and what's going out, and show you where your farm stands so you can make better business decisions throughout the season. If you're behind, they'll help get everything caught up. They also help farmers find funding and stay ahead of grant deadlines. You run the farm, they help the business. Learn more at goodagriculture.com/info. That's goodagriculture.com/info. All right, back to the show. All right, so the other day I got this notice from our soccer association that oversees our local soccer organization, and they said there was this like free camera offer for all the coaches in the state, and I was like, rad. I've always wanted to film the game so that the kids could watch, their goals and stuff. That sounds like a sweet deal. Too sweet, it turns out, as most things are. The offer was that I could get the camera for free if I could get all of my parents, or like whatever, half of them, to sign up. Now, they didn't necessarily have to pay anything to sign up, but what the company wanted ultimately was to sell those parents like a $20 to $30 a month subscription to get clips and highlights of their kids playing. And frankly, I just closed the email, never to look back again. Saying nothing of the complete mess that is youth sports in America right now, as we have capitalismed the entire thing to death at this point, to the point that parents are taking out loans and second mortgages for personal trainers to cover the costs of, like travel teams and tournaments and whatnot. Saying nothing of that, though, I'm very tempted. I am just feeling an overwhelming sense of subscription fatigue, and recently read an article about the same idea. A lot of people are going through it. We are getting bombarded from all angles with subscriptions. You know how much I love soccer, but we miss several games that we want to watch just because we cannot subscribe to another network or upgrade another network thing. And not just out of principle. Sometimes the cost is just outrageous, especially for things like watching sports. I mean, $20 to $30 for a month for AI-generated highlights of a 10-year-old. What are we doing here? Quoting the New York Times article I referenced, quote, "The average American has 5.2 subscriptions and spends $69 per month on them, according to new research from Bango, a British subscription platform provider, though other research places the figures higher. In some of those analyses, including one by the Chicago-based firm C&R Research, the average subscription bill per person might be more than $200 per month." End quote. That's a lot of money, much of it which is probably not for things we even really use that much, and a lot of money that could be going towards good things that we and the world actually need. To be clear, I'm not anti-subscription by any means. In fact, that's part of why I wanted to discuss this. From a small business perspective and from a nonprofit perspective, subscriptions can be incredibly helpful. They allow us to budget. They build loyalty and relationships. Like in the case of CSA-style farming programs, so many farms, including ours for 7 years, live off of subscription models. But lately, because big corporations and tech bros always want to ruin a good thing, it feels as though they have run amok with the model and diluted it, made it less attractive, and made it so that basically everything requires a subscription. Nice TV you got there. Shame you can't use it without a subscription. And so on. The idea of signing on to a $2 or $5 a month thing 10 years ago was still met with some reluctance, but it now feels like I just have to roll my eyes, if not downright turn away from in protest, like in the case of the camera. Hannah pointed out the other day how many things you buy that require a subscription to even use them or fully use them. The product is no longer the product without subscribing to it. I think there will be corrections in the market ultimately, but I can also see how the world is just going more towards catering to the rich and not just really caring about anyone else. Companies have realized that they can, sell products at incredibly inflated prices to wealthy people and just not have to bother offering much of anything to anyone else. Like they may offer something like a cheap flight here or there, or a cheaper version of a handbag, etc. But what they're ultimately doing is just selling fewer things at significantly higher prices. And subscriptions are another version of that to some extent, where the poor are getting priced out because they can't afford the premium version. But it doesn't really matter because the wealthy are buoying everything, and or everyone else is just living outside of their means. So anyway, I wanted to say two things here, really. One, I'm over all the subscriptions too, probably like you are. But two, that matters in the farming context because it's easy to build apathy towards these models and get sucked into subscriptions that tie up capital from being used for actually good things. So I thought it was relevant to remember to not forget about the little guys when frustrated with what the world is becoming, remembering the farmers, the farms, and maybe even the farmer content creator nonprofits, though I may be a little biased there. Anyway, maybe that's not the most complete or interesting point I've ever harped on, but I was thinking about how valuable subscriptions can be to the little guys and how the big guys are toxifying the idea, and that will have trickle-down implications. So I guess my question for you is, subscriptions are the pits right now? Yes or no? How you feeling? Let us know, and otherwise, have a great weekend, everyone. That is something I can definitely subscribe to. Don't forget, No-Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That is an easy way to help us out. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors, and if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at no-tillgrowers.com. Big thank you to Michelle. Big thank you to the No-Till Growers Board of Directors. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Cheers to Brighton. We'll see how that one goes. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at no-tillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/no-tillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, you sign up in the month of May, you get a shout out on the show. So big shout outs today to Dwight Yoder. Holding it down is our sunlight. Yeah, it's super important. That's what keeps our stories finished every week. So if you're ever like, I really want to support those stories, sunlight would be the way to do it. All right. So anyway, as you will remember, Moore, our heroine this week, has just woken up in the hospital after collapsing on stage after playing the completely wrong song at the show at Red Rocks. And she has some serious explaining to do, but not to the doctor. The doctor understood immediately what had happened. Looking to get ahead in the world of music, Moore's family, feeling the pressure of their daughter being left behind in talent or whatever, had splurged on the implant. You can't really tell when someone has one of these, of course, and nobody really wants to talk about it. They're definitely not going to tell people they have one. They're billed as a way of, like teaching someone to do a certain skill, in this case, guitar. But in reality, if you can afford it, the proper upgrades, they just make you a virtuoso at whatever you want. So they just put the implant in. It makes you awesome at playing the flute, or the guitar in this case. However, Moore's family had been unable to afford the Premium Plus version upgrade anymore. So stage malfunction, was a little bit of a nudge to remind her it's time to upgrade. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you tomorrow. Bye.
Ready or not, summer is coming, and Wayfair's Memorial Day clearance is on now. Right now through May 25th, get up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair. Plus, score amazing doorbuster deals all sale long and surprise flash deals on Memorial Day. We're talking thousands of products at every style and budget. Now is the time to save big on must-haves for your patio, backyard, and beyond. These savings won't last, so don't wait. Shop Wayfair's Memorial Day clearance now through May 25th.
Wayfair, every style, every home.